Hi everyone, I got an amazing story for you about me, Esther. My story shows how God used my creativity in unexpected ways. See, I became the Queen of Persia, but I didn't become queen in the usual way. My father wasn't a king, and I was Jewish. The Jewish people were often referred to as God's people. Many of God's people had been captured and brought to Babylon when their home was defeated. Then Babylon grew up and was taken over by Persia. So when I was in Persia, I grew up in a land that wasn't my own. When my parents died, my cousin Mordecai raised me as his own daughter. At this time in history, King Xerxes was the king of Persia. When his queen, Vashti, refused to show up for a wild party, King Xerxes got very angry. The king thought about what he should do next. Then he had an idea. He decided to hold a contest. He ordered his officials to gather the most beautiful young women and put them through a year of beauty treatments. One of the girls chosen for the contest was me. Mordecai told me not to tell anyone that I was from a Jewish family. When it was time for Xerxes to choose his queen, can you guess who he chose? Yeah, you guessed it. King Xerxes chose me, Esther, a Jew, to be his queen. King Xerxes also raised a royal official named Haman, but to be more important to any other leaders in the kingdom. But Haman was not a good guy at all. He expected everyone to bow down to him whenever they saw him. And when my cousin Mordecai wouldn't bow to Haman, Haman was really angry. Haman made a plan to destroy Mordecai and all the Jewish people in the land. And the king agreed and sent out an announcement to everyone. Mordecai then sent a message to me saying I must ask the king to save the Jewish people. But I was afraid. I knew that no one was allowed to go and talk to the king unless he asked them to come. If someone came to see the king without being invited, the king could have them killed unless he reached out his golden scepter to them. But the king had not asked for me to come. So this was very risky for me to go to the king. But Mordecai sent another message to encourage me. What if I don't say anything at this time? Then help for the Jews would have to come from another place. I mean, who knows? It's possible that I became queen for a time just like this. Mordecai was saying that he really believed the whole reason God had allowed me to become queen was so that I could save God's people. And I agreed. I asked Mordecai to tell God's people to not eat anything for 3 days, and they prayed and asked him to save the Jewish people. Me and my attendants, we wouldn't eat anything either. So I entered the throne room. King Xerxes was pleased to see me and reached out his golden scepter. The king told me that he would give me anything up to half of the kingdom. This was my big chance to save my people. But I didn't make my request right away. I was really creative because I knew I would have a better chance if I made the king very curious about what it was that I wanted. So I invited the king and Haman to a feast. And at the meal, King Xerxes kept trying to figure out what it was that I wanted. But again, I waited for the perfect moment. So I then invited the king and Haman to come to yet another feast the next day and promised to tell him then. At the meal, I begged the king to spare my people. I said that Haman was the one who planned to kill the people. And when the king heard this, he was furious. That very night, Haman was killed, and the king created a new order that would save the Jewish people. God gave me a very special job to do in a land that was far away from my home. He gave me the chance to help my people when no one else could. When the time was right, I used my creativity to convince a king to save the Jewish people. God created me with a purpose, and He has a purpose for you too.